Hello there, you're listening to the Power Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I have a guest who spent more than a decade fighting for women's equality in the world of skateboarding. Mimi Knoop is on the show, and we talk about skateboarding, gender, our home state of Virginia, and a whole lot more. Before we get to Mimi, I need to tell you that I have some limited edition Powell Movement hats made by the good folks at Cole Headwear. These hats come complete with a brim that blocks out the sun, are size adjustable, and are made from the greatest materials in whatever country they were made in. You can get yours over at thepowellmovement.com. I also need to ask you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement and share my posts on Facebook. This week, one lucky sharer will get themselves a Powell Movement hat. I also want to thank Jacob over at Perky Jerky for sending me the wonderful meat care package. And finally, I have to thank my amazing sponsors who make this show happen. They are Evo, Rescue Water, the 10 Barrel Brewery, and Unofficial Networks. Now, let's talk to Mimi Knoop. You just get back from Norway? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I got back a few days ago. Had a wedding I had to get back for. But yeah, it was an adventure.
For X Games over there?
Yeah, I went over and ran Women's Street for X Games Norway and then kind of spun off a side trip after that for a few days and got the most of being that far away and then just came home after.
What's the X Games like over in Norway? Are the crowds as big as they are here in the U.S. and do the people eat it up as much as they do?
You know what? The venue's a little different. It's an indoor skate park. Only a certain number of seating there. So it's kind of a smaller, more intimate space. Not as big with the huge stadium and all that. So it's kind of a nice vibe because it's a lot of locals and they're really close to skating. And yeah, it's kind of a mellower vibe. Like the skaters really like it.
And what do you do for fun over there? Do you go anyplace cool?
Yeah, I took a couple of the girls that were in the contest with me and we hopped on a super scenic 8-hour train ride to the more picturesque fjord area outside Stavanger. Yeah, we had a couple of adventurous days over there hiking and seeing some cool stuff and getting our nature fix.
When you're taking girls from the contest on a trip, are you kind of like the team mom?
I see it more as I'm someone that used to be kind of their peer and is now maybe a few steps beyond that just because I'm a little older. And yeah, I guess in a way, but I think of them more as friends or family members almost.
I would think that they're looking to you for guidance because you've been through a lot of this shit and you can tell them exactly your experience and they can learn.
For sure. I definitely do that. And I enjoy helping them when I can. But then we also have fun too. So yeah.
So talking about you, you're a military brat, is that right? You've lived everywhere?
Yeah, I moved around quite a lot.
Give me the list.
Yeah, so I actually went to Radford just like you, believe it or not.
Damn it, I was hoping you didn't know that.
Well, I did my research too, because I was like, what is this podcast about? But from Virginia, my family's from Virginia, outside Norfolk, Virginia Beach area.
So very military?
Yeah, both of my grandfathers were Navy. My dad went into the Navy to take care of medical school, so he was a little different, but he ended up being a Navy ER doc. But yeah, we started in Virginia, went to Florida, then went to Cuba, then went to Cincinnati, then back to Virginia. And then I went to college, and after college I split and went to the Virgin Islands for a year and then ended up in California after that.
So your dad, he's a doctor. Is it like a military life growing up for you? Because I'm guessing you live on barracks, and is your dad like a regimented military guy, or is it a little bit more chill?
No, way more chill. Yeah, most of the places we lived were just normal neighborhoods. We only lived on base in Cuba because you have to live on base there. You're fenced in down in Guantanamo. But yeah, other than that, Cincinnati, Virginia, we all just lived in normal neighborhoods. In Cincinnati, my dad worked at the University of Cincinnati. He did his residency there, so it had really no military connection in terms of day-to-day life. And then when we moved back to the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, he did work at Portsmouth Naval, but we lived out in Chesapeake and we weren't on base or anything then.
Being a doctor in the military, I would think you make a lot less money than being a doctor in the private sector.
I don't really know. I'm not keyed into all that. It's not something, my family ever discussed. We weren't raised knowing that kind of stuff.
Cool. Was it tough moving place to place and having to make new friends all over again?
It was. I was very shy as a kid. And so it kind of got me outside my comfort zone, even though I didn't want to be in that situation. It kind of got me more primed for talking to people that I don't know and meeting people. And whereas I think if I stayed in one place, I never would have learned those kind of skills. But yeah, it was very tough as a kid. It was heartbreaking certain moves because I really loved where we lived. But I also kept in touch with all my friends from all those different places. So,
And that's hard to do.
it is. Yeah, it definitely is, especially pre-Facebook era. So yeah, we wrote letters and would talk on the phone every once in a while. But yeah, still friends with a lot of those kids today from back then.
That's awesome. And what's really interesting to me is that you lived in Cuba, because I guess we can go there now, and I haven't gone there. But back then, Cuba was a different world, I would think. And what do you remember from that?
We basically lived on a 45 square mile section of land. That was the U.S. base down there. And we lived on the leeward side of the island, so there was really not a lot to do. There were maybe 12 kids on that side of the island total, and one of them skateboarded. So I just started skateboarding with him, and then we were right next to the Guantanamo Bay Airport, the U.S. military airport there. And one of the cargo workers skated, and he built us a little launch ramp, little quarter pipe, and literally we just skate with this dude every day after school, and that's what we did. We'd either go to the beach and snorkel or we'd skate. It was great for the age range I was. I was like 8 to 12 there. So yeah, I think if I was any older than that, I would have been bored to death. But for a kid that age, it was wonderful. Great experience.
When you get back to the States, are you still skating a lot? Do you have some friends that skate?
Yeah, I kind of would go in and out with it. When we were in Cincinnati, there were 2 kids in the whole tri-state area that skated, and they happened to live down the road from me. So I instantly became buddies with them. They were 2 brothers. You know, we built ramps at their house and kind of skated street a bunch because there were no parks or anything. And yeah, I started playing soccer around the same time. So skating was just something I loved and always did with my friends, but I never saw a path outside of that or even knew that was possible to do anything else. So yeah, it was really just a genuine love, childhood love, I would say.
Are there any girls skating back then, or is it you and dudes?
It was me and dudes. I didn't know that there were other girls that actually skated. I was just assuming there weren't. So yeah, just me and the guys.
Were you like a tomboyish type girl, or are you into sports? What would you be categorized, I guess, in your high school days?
I definitely was probably tomboyish. You know, it was before Roxy was really a thing where they made skate or surf clothes for girls. You know, I had to go in the boys section to get the t-shirts I wanted, and, you know, same thing at the skate shops. And yeah, so I definitely was more of a tomboy, and I probably still am. I don't really like dresses that much just because you can't do too many things in a dress.
Oh, I don't wear them that often either. They get in my way too. But did you go to prom and, have boyfriends in high school?
I did. Yes, I did. I went to both proms. I was actually on the homecoming court a couple times. So yeah, I did have to do those things and had fun with them. And a lot of my, friends in high school, they were girls that obviously did not skate. So yeah, I had a whole nother world outside of skating that was pretty normal, normal kid stuff.
On paper, you are a normal kid. Good family, goes to high school, college, graduates, goes to find herself in the Virgin Islands. But in high school, it seems like you've got your school life and then skateboarding. And is it like a secret double life?
No, not at all. I was a skater girl in high school. So when we moved back to Virginia, there were more guys in that area that skated. So I had a nice little crew in high school. And even into college, I would come home from Radford in the summers and we'd always skate all summer. And I still skate with those guys now when I go back. If I happen to bring my board with me, I always call them up and, they're like 40-year-old guys now. And we still meet up and we have a great time. So there's definitely a better scene in the Virginia Beach, Chesapeake area than there was in Cincinnati in the mid-90s.
Was that after Trashmore or was that right around then?
Yeah, we moved back to the area after Trashmore was gone. So I never actually experienced Trashmore. And then I moved to California. And then a few years after that, they rebuilt everything there. So yeah, I've never lived in the area when Trashmore was a skate park.
That's pretty funny because it's like the iconic place in Virginia.
Yep.
You graduated from high school and went to one of the most prestigious universities in all of America.
That's right.
It's known for Chancey's Crusties, BTs in the bus stop.
Thank God there was no social media when I was there.
It's funny because we were in a different world back then where people said and did things that were different because I think we were just ignorant.
Me too, for sure. Yeah, so I went to Radford. I applied to a few schools. I really was young and, like you said, ignorant. And I was like, I don't want to go to college. My mom's like, you're going to college and you're going away somewhere. Like, you're not allowed to go to Old Dominion or any local schools. She just was really adamant that I needed to be on my own and kind of grow up. So I picked Radford because I had friends from high school that got accepted. So I'm like, cool, I'll go there. And then I decided to walk on the soccer team like 3 weeks before school started. And yeah, made it on the soccer team and met a lot of really good friends that I'm still friends with now. They all live in California now with me. Played soccer for a few years, and I think I quit along with a few other girls like our junior year.
Why'd you quit? If more than one girl quit, is there something that made you leave?
I think at the time, like, it was Division I soccer program. It was really rigorous. It was probably the only reason I didn't fail out of school, honestly, those first 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of just wanted to like enjoy the college experience a little more. There was, you know, it was NCAA rules, like you can't party, do anything 48 hours for a game. It was very rigorous. And as a walk-on, it was like, okay, this isn't helping pay my tuition. Like, this has been a fun experience, but I kind of want to really enjoy college the last little bit I'm here. So yeah, it was more based around, you know, wanting to have fun than anything.
And Radford's one of those places, especially when I went, you're, I think, 4 years younger than me. You probably got there when I was leaving, but it was one of those schools that was looked at as a party school. I think they've worked on their reputation and getting it better.
Yeah.
But it was a fun school, and if you go there and you're just going to be stuck in an athletic program, I would think it would kind of blow.
Yeah, it was fun, actually. It ran its course in terms of the experience, and it was time to just move on. And our coach was rad. Like, it was his first year that year, and I think he's still there. And he skated a little bit, and I would skate down to practice all the time, and he would do, you know, little shove-its and stuff with me. And he was a rad dude. Ben Sarabi, I think was his name.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was rad. So, like, it was not a negative experience at all. We just kind of wanted to have less rules, really.
Being a skate kid, there are no rules in that world, and then you get into regimented soccer, and it's the difference between the two sports. There's not a ton of people that play serious team sports, but also are, you know, an elite action sports athlete.
Right.
At that point, you know, you're more focused on the team sport, it seems like, but there's not too many people that have the mentality that can go both ways, can listen to a coach yell at them and tell them to do something, and then go have fun and be creative on their skateboard.
I guess that's true. I never thought of it that way.
You graduate from the greatest university in the entire world. You're a hustling Highlander.
Oh, yeah.
You're going out into the world, and like everyone from Radford, I think, should do, and any college kid, you should take a couple years off and enjoy yourself. I went to Vail for a couple years, and
nice.
Where did you go?
Well, just to lead up to that, a few months before graduation, all of our friends, you know, I'm going to get this job, you know, all these desk jobs. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And my roommate at the time, one of my good friends, Becky, was like, yeah, let's do something else. So she originally was like, I'll move to the Virgin Islands with you. And my parents had friends that packed up in the late 70s and moved down there, $200 in a suitcase, and they live down there now. So I was like, Mom, call up your friends, you know, get me a job. And long story short, Becky bailed. Becky decided to go for the real job. And I ended up just going on my own. And I ended up living on a eco camp on St. John. I don't know what you would call it. It was like you work a few hours a day in exchange for like 2 or 3 meals and lodging, basically, in like a tent cottage. And so I lived in this tent cottage for 6 weeks and would hitchhike into town and come back and live in a tent. And it was wild. It was an adventure.
No pay? It was like you're an indentured servant almost?
Yeah, pretty much. I think there was like a tuition, like maybe $250 a month or something in addition, but like it was a really hard program to get into. I think they had like 2,000 applicants and they only accept a few people. And my parents' friends were friends with the general manager, so they got me in. So it was like a big deal to like even get accepted in this place. And so yeah, I lived there for 6 weeks. Then I became a bartender in town and ended up staying there for about a year before I, went back home to figure out the next plan.
The next plan was going to be London. You're going to take the skills you learned behind the bar or wine and go to London.
Yeah, I ended up working for a resort down there as a wine steward, and it was a really fun, nice paying job for a 22-year-old kid. And, in the orientation, they're like, You can transfer properties. They have properties all around the world. So I saw it as a way to travel. And I applied to the Switzerland property and the London property. The London property got back in touch, said, hey, let's do this. Like, let's finish the hiring process up. That was September 10th, 2001.
Okay.
And the next day it changed everything. And no one wanted to fly after 9/11. Like, no one traveled for, I remember, a couple years. It was really hard on the tourism industry and the hospitality industry. So I ended up not getting that job. And I also could not get my old job back because everything just shut down. And I had a friend from Radford moving to San Diego a month later after I found out I couldn't get these jobs back. So I just jumped in the car and went to San Diego instead.
So you must be really pissed off at bin Laden because you had that wine career.
I know, it's odd that something positive can come out of something horrific like 9/11. But for me, it ended up steering me in the right direction.
Yeah. Are you a big wine person these days?
You know, I don't know that much. I really knew a lot about California wines and like very specific California wines. So what I did is I actually got my dad and super into wine after I had that job. And now he's the wine guy. So, you know, it's more my dad calls me up or sends me pictures of wine bottles now than anything. So it's almost like I just got him into it and now I don't have to worry about it.
Do you drink wine a lot?
I do. I love wine as long as it's decent.
All right. Well, I am going to send you a bottle of Ruth Lewandowski wines, which is my brother-in-law. He's lived all over the world growing grapes. And now he's doing it out of Utah, and he's the only winemaker out of Utah, and he makes a fantastic wine. So I will send you a bottle.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. That is awesome.
So you get to California. Do you have any plan? Or are you just like, hey, I'm going to go live in the sun and figure it out?
Well, I'd saved some money from the job in the Virgin Islands, and it wouldn't be a lot for a normal adult, but I thought I was a millionaire at the time. And you know, I was like, I have, you know, all this money and I'll just get a job. And honestly, the economy was so much different at that time. And I remember me and my friend Mike, who I moved out here with, we had a couch we stayed on, one of his buddies' couches, and we had jobs in an apartment within 3 weeks after moving here. So I just got another like fine dining server job and bounced around restaurants for a while. And my good friend Brian Fick was the only person I knew in San Diego who I'd known prior to moving there. And so I reconnected with Brian, who went on to become like a pretty well-known skate photographer. And he was like, hey, you got to check out the skate parks here. Like, they are insane. And I just was so clueless. I wasn't really aware that the scene was here and all these parks were here. I was just really aloof, I guess. But yeah, Brian introduced me to the whole skate scene and introduced me to, you know, Jen O'Brien and Carabeth Burnside. And I met girl skaters for the first time, and they kind of all took me under their wing and got me to drop in a vert ramp, and the rest is history.
Yeah, so when you get out there, it's around 2002. You're like 24 years old. You say I'm guessing you have like 10 grand in the bank and you think you're rich.
It was less than that.
It's weird to me that you don't realize that the scene is there, but I guess you're more about the actual sport of skateboarding growing up than maybe the culture.
Yes, that's accurate. I just loved skateboarding. I mean, I knew who the pros were. As a small kid, I was obsessed with the Bones Brigade and like obsessed with all the graphics and the brands, but that's as far as I got. Aside from the actual skateboarders and the brands, I didn't know the business side or even really care, to be honest. Like, I just was like, I love skateboarding. So yeah, I think that actually was beneficial in the long run, because who knows what would have happened if I was keyed into all that. I don't think things would have played out the same.
You didn't move out to California to become a skateboarder. You moved out to California, I would think, for the weather and a change of life.
Absolutely, the weather. I thought it was going to be 90 degrees, sunny with warm water, and been surfing most of my life as well. So it was mainly for the surf and the beach. But yeah, I got here, had to buy a jacket and a wetsuit. So I didn't know anything.
Is the water that much warmer in Virginia Beach?
It is if you're a fair weather surfer like myself and just go in the warm months. Not a lot of people surfed year round back then, and I'm sure more people do now. But back in the 90s and early 2000s, you just surf when it got warm out.
Makes sense, but people are a little bit more hardcore today. I'm going to take a break real quick to talk about my sponsors. And the first one is Evo. They are hands down the best retail location in the country for ski, snowboard, skate, bike, lifestyle, and they have everything you could possibly want for your adventure. I've personally shopped there since they opened because no one comes close to the service they offer and the vibe the shop creates. And now that it's bike season, if you're in Denver, Seattle, or Portland, Evo is your one-stop shop for the best bike service and brands. If you can't make it to a store, don't worry. Evo.com has all the brands, all the products, and a low price guarantee, free shipping on orders over $50, and a no-hassle return policy. For listening to the show, they're going to give you 10% off your entire order. When you check out, use the code capital TPM, the number 10, it's all one word, and you'll get that 10% off. My next sponsor is Rescue Water, and they are proactive recovery, and they should be your choice for hydration. Rescue Water is science that is designed to replace your electrolytes better than a traditional sports drink. Think of it like this. Energy drinks are better than coffee for a pick-me-up, like Rescue Water is better than a sports drink for hydration. And with Rescue Water, better is something you can feel. Anytime you work out, you lose electrolytes. Make the smart choice and replace them with Rescue Water. And if you're a night owl like me, drink a cold Rescue Water before bed after big nights out. No more Saturday morning headaches, and it's amazing how well it works for me. Make Rescue Water work for you by heading over to rescuewater.com. You'll save 20% off a 12-pack case when you enter the code RESQWATERTPM. That's all one word. Rescue Water is also available on Amazon. My final sponsor, brews beer, drinks beer, and has fun doing it, period. They are the 10 Barrel Brewery based out of Bend, Oregon, and they live and breathe the snow and bike culture. And they support it with events and, more importantly, beer. 10 Barrel wants you to know that it's important to drink beer outside. While we all have a few cold ones indoors, there's nothing that compares to a cold 10 Barrel when you get off the trail or you're just chilling with your friends out in Mother Nature. And while we all love beer, 10 Barrel also delivers on the food front. If you find yourself in Bend, Portland, Boise, Denver, or San Diego, make sure you check out one of the 10 Barrel pubs for some great food and our favorite beers. Support the beer that supports action sports, the 10 Barrel Brewery. Find out more about the beer, pubs, and events over at 10barrel.com. Those are my sponsors, and we are going to get back to your life. And you're in California. You've got a server job.
Yep.
And that frees up your days, I would think, so you can go to all these skate parks and get immersed in skate culture, which you didn't move to California for, but it kind of happens.
Right. It kind of happened, and that's exactly how it went. You know, I'd work in the mornings or at night, so then I'd have the days freed up, and I felt like a 10-year-old kid all over again. I was just so excited to go skate every day, and yeah, that's kind of how it went for maybe the first year or two, and I ended up starting to enter contests. Like at the time, there may be 5 girls in a bowl. You know, they used to have Soul Bowl with the Vans Triple Crown, so like...
Right on the beach, those?
Yep. And so they had like 3 of those a year in addition to like maybe 2 or 3 vert contests through Vans Triple Crown. And so we had a lot of events going on. It wasn't like money making opportunities, but it was an opportunity to go skate and try to learn some tricks and see how far I could push it. And yeah, I kept doing that. And then I broke my wrist and I couldn't wait tables anymore. So then I went to a temp agency and started working as like a receptionist for maybe, I don't know, a year and a half.
Huh.
I ended up working like at a title company, and a lot of those jobs, like they wouldn't give me weekends, or, you know, a contest might be on a Thursday instead of a Saturday, and they just were not supportive. But I ended up in this one place where the manager was just this cool old guy, and he was like, go for it. Like, this is really cool. You're doing this. And he would give me the days off. So I ended up at that job for about a year, and then I got laid off because I was a temp, and they were like, okay, we're downsizing. Like, we don't need this temp anymore. And around that time, Carabeth and Jen and Alyssa and Lindsay all got invited to do a globe contest out in Australia. They used to do these globe contests every February.
Okay.
They're like, hey, you should come with us. And I'm like, you guys, I have $200 to my name. I have no job. I wouldn't even be able to afford a flight. You're crazy. Like, I just was like, they don't understand like what normal people have to do. Long story short, I got a flight on miles and ended up in Australia for like a month. And never had a normal job after that. It just started working out. That was the last 9-to-5 job I had. And then Nikita and a couple other sponsors started paying me a little bit of money, and I just started living very frugally for a while and just living the dream, like skating every day and trying to progress and take things to the next level.
It kind of gives me chills because I talk to a lot of people who make things happen for themselves. And so many people have the story like you do. I mean, there's some people that have shit handed to them and it's easy, but there's a lot of people that they're down to their last $200 and it's like, hey, you have to make a decision. And that choice to go to Australia, yeah, you're choosing fun, but you're also choosing the unknown because you don't have any money. You could end up screwed with nothing there and trying to figure out how to get back or how to eat while you're there.
Right.
But you lay it all on the line in the name of fun or whatever. But it turns out that big risk right then, I mean, that's the thing that changes everything.
Yeah. And, it's funny. My parents were the encouraging factor there, which is pretty ironic because most parents would be like, what are you doing? They were like, oh, you know other girls going on this trip? They're like, that is a really rare opportunity. Like, you need to go. I came from a family that was pretty solid, but I never got money from my parents. It's not how we were raised. So they're like, hey, if you want to do this, that's great, but you need to figure out a way to support yourself. So, yeah, they're very supportive, but also want me to be accountable. And their blessing is kind of what made me get on the plane. So I'm very lucky.
Did you pay for college or did they?
They paid for college, but post-college.
I think that's a good thing, but they never said to you, hey, you're 25 years old now. You've went to school. You're ready for the real world. You've already done a couple years of post-grad fun. Now it's time to grow up. They never said that to you. They were like, no, go to Australia and follow your dreams.
They were just like, hey, if you can pay your bills, do whatever makes you happy kind of thing. So yeah, they literally said that.
A lot of parents would question it to the end, and then 15 years later, they would have been like, I should never have questioned your trip because it worked out. But your parents backed it.
They backed it. They've always backed skateboarding, any weird thing I wanted to do. So, yeah, they're very supportive.
And then turning pro in the skateboard world, you turned pro in 2003. So that's a year after you get to California, which means you're skating a shit ton and you're skating with really good people that get you better. But what does it actually mean to turn pro? Because in so many of these sports, there's paid AMs. Everybody's got a different way of being pro, it seems like, between ski, snowboard, skate, bike. What does it mean in skateboarding to you? How do you turn pro?
I mean, I've never claimed that I turned pro. I think it was more of a Nikita press release.
Okay.
But I remember reading it and being horrified that they said I was a pro skater. So yeah, that was never something that I claimed at the time. But for me, it was more technical. I got a paycheck for skateboarding and I was like, whoa. I think the first check I got was $100. And I was like, wow, someone just gave me money for skateboarding. Like, that's insane. So yeah, I see it more as, especially at that time, because girls didn't get pro models or anything like that. So it was more like if you made money, then you were technically professional.
Yeah, I mean, I would say back then, they were creating the girls' contests on like, hey, if it's a contest weekend and we're going to have big events Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're going to put the girls on Thursday.
Right. Or at 10 a.m., 9 or 10 a.m. before it opens. Maybe the gates open at noon. That would happen a lot.
At that point, it's a male-dominated, what still is a male-dominated world in action sports, but people are finally opening their eyes to equality across the board. Action sports is the last place I think it's going to happen, unfortunately, but it's starting to already. I guess your mission, it's twofold. It's like you want to be successful as a skateboarder, but you want to make it so women can be equal to men in the skateboard world. It's just for fair treatment. It's 2018. It should have happened by now, and it's not. So in 2005, you helped start the Women's Skateboard Alliance. Is that based on the difference between pay, or is it the difference between scheduling? What's that all about?
The pay was something that was there and affecting everyone, but that was not the initial concern at the time. The concern at the time was, an event like X Games, which was the biggest event in the world for skateboarding at the time. We wouldn't even know if we were invited until less than a week before. So, we had no way to tell family if they weren't local, and we'd maybe have 45 minutes of practice before the contest, and that was it. There was no one in there representing and advocating for the girls at the time. And from a business standpoint, in 2005, from a promoter's perspective only, not a skateboarder's perspective, I understand that they're like, okay, the main show here is men's whatever. I get it that we were a smaller group. There wasn't a market yet, but from an athlete side, like the athlete's perspective, there was huge gaps. Like it was just really, it was a problem. We felt like a circus sideshow. So more than anything, we wanted to create a voice for ourselves and be able to have an advocate in place looking out for us. Then we wanted media exposure increased because we definitely didn't have any television coverage, which is the biggest thing you could get at that time.
Yeah.
Before the internet had blown up and webcasts and everything else. We were not on TV at all. There would barely even be any photographers at our event. Like there was no coverage. It was like it didn't happen unless you were in the building. So those two things were the really like more immediate concerns at the time. And then of course prize money, like someone like Alyssa or Carabeth winning first place, they could not create a career off of being the best in the world. I mean, it was a hobby. And we saw roadblocks there for progression because of that. Because if you don't have a way to make it happen, you're not going to be able to bring new people in to progress skateboarding. So yeah, that's kind of where it all came from. And it wasn't planned. It just kind of happened. And our group at the time, it's still small and connected now, 12, 13 years later. But at that time, it was very small and very connected. So we were able to create unity overnight, unplanned, and just kind of create leverage for ourselves. And this is all through the guidance of a guy named Drew Mearns, who really turned us on to a lot of the possibilities we could create and kind of educated us a little bit on what was possible.
In the early days when you guys were really frustrated, when they tell you a week before that the contest is on and you guys are invited and you're a little bit frustrated hearing that, did they take the attitude of, why are you frustrated? We're actually doing this for you.
Yeah, we were told we were lucky to be there.
Yeah.
We were basically told if you guys don't show up, like you're going to get canceled, just how inline skating got canceled.
They were trying to use leverage against you, and there was going to be a boycott, and I think it was 2005.
Yeah, we did actually not show up. We decided to not show up. The first event on the roster that year was Women's Street, so the stands were full, in person at the event, but there was no one there to skate. And so that's how we got the X Games general manager at the time on the phone to begin the whole conversation.
Is that Ron Semio you have to talk to with that?
At the time, it was Chris Steepak, and he's over at NBC now, and he's a friend now. Like, he's a good guy. But yeah, he was the one that was on the phone with Carabeth that day, and yeah, that's how it started.
That was your Colin Kaepernick moment?
I guess so, yeah.
Well, it worked really well for you guys. Not so good for him. I did raise awareness for him, but he's not playing anymore. You guys are skating in front of a lot more people now. So it worked for you guys. And how are you able to talk to all the women and say, hey, we need to stand together and not step onto the street course? Because I'm sure there's some that are like, hey, I flew here from wherever and I'm here to skate.
Right. I mean, it was definitely an individual decision by each one of them, but there were very few that had anything to lose at the time. If anyone had the most to lose, it was Carabeth. I think she had endorsements with several different brands, was making really good money. She was probably making the most money out of anyone there, aside from maybe whatever Alyssa had going on. But yeah, there was really nothing to lose at the time. So that's kind of how we looked at it.
Is that the same year that Carabeth, she had like a migraine or something and she wasn't going to compete, but then your dad got her back into the event?
Yeah, so that was the following year in 2006. And what had happened is we had a promising conversation. 2005, we agreed to get everyone out there on the street course. We went ahead with the contest, and we went ahead with the vert contest the next day. And the only kind of thing we asked for was to have a meeting to discuss the future. Well, about a year later, that meeting never came to be. So I'm trying to remember exactly how it happened. We got an article published in the New York Times.
Boom.
Yeah, like right before X Games, a year later in 2006, and we secured a meeting with the president of ESPN, actually vice president at the time of ESPN, at the top of the Staples Center. And that was literally the day before the vert contest where CB had a migraine. So we nailed down this deal with the president of ESPN. He was really fair, really nice to us. And the plan we worked out was, look, this isn't going to happen overnight, but over the next few years, we're going to increase the prize purse each year and also increase exposure and television coverage as well. And then we're also going to let you guys be in charge of your own events. So that's overnight how I came to run the events. So yeah, the next day was vert. Carabeth has hereditary migraines, has had them her whole life. Woke up with a migraine, puking, couldn't move. My dad was in town for X Games, and he was able to get her an anti-nausea medication that kind of got her out there for the hour or two she needed to be, and she skated and won gold with a migraine. So yeah, true champion there.
And then in terms of your X Games career, I mean, you have 5 medals in the X Games. And what's it like really when you get the invite to your first X Games? Because I'm sure it's one of those moments where you're like, holy shit, I'm going to the X Games.
Yeah, so I think my first X Games was maybe 2003. And I was surfing with Jen O'Brien, and she's like, oh, yeah, you're invited to the X Games, like, while we're in the water. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So, yeah, that was really informal. But then I did get some shiny silver letter in the mail at the time that said I was actually invited. Back then they sent letters. So, yeah, that's how I got roped in. But that was before all our work and creating a structure around it and everything else. So it was pretty loose back in those days.
For that first X Games, was it one of those 10 a.m. contests where no one was there?
I don't remember, to be honest. I think I blacked the whole thing out because I was so nervous. Yeah, I couldn't tell you what happened. I know that the ramp was really good and it was, really fun, but I was really green. I remember someone asked to do an interview afterwards and I just said, no, thank you. I didn't know what you were supposed to do.
You say you were really nervous at that X Games, but are you nervous in general at contests or have you learned to deal with the pressure?
I always would get nervous at contests, but I ended up learning how to harness the psychological aspects of it. But yeah, I used to drop in my first runs, not feel my legs all the time. It would turn into physical attributes of nervousness. It was really intense. And I know it's like that for a lot of the girls that are out there now. Yeah, some people really enjoy it. And I would enjoy the fact that it would make me progress and become a better skater. But other than that, it was like a horrifying experience each time.
And people I talk to, I find that the people that are driven to win, that always grew up super competitive, I'm going to beat you, they love contests. And then The more chill people like yourself, they get super nervous. Eventually they can harness that energy and put it into their run. But it takes a couple of years to figure out how to look at all the lights and all the people and not let it affect you.
Yeah, it definitely took practice, and contests really were just part of a strategy to skateboard for a living for me, and that's all it was. I never expected to win anything ever, and I only won a few events, but my goal is to always be on the podium because that's how I could continue skateboarding professionally. That was always my goal.
Yeah, so you look at X Games, you have 5 medals, silver and bronze. I'm going to guess that you probably aren't even concerned with not winning a gold. You're just stoked to be on the podium?
Yeah, I don't believe the hype. I was there and I was riding my skateboard for a living for almost a decade, and that is my gold medal technically for me. That's the win for me.
And in terms of a competitive professional skateboarder, on paper, at your level, how much can you make in your best year? And I know you don't have to say the exact number because it's not nice to ask people about that, but just a ballpark.
Are you asking for that time frame or currently?
Let's say that time frame first.
Okay, that time frame, it was all the X Games money. Once we got the purses equal, 2008 or 2009, that was when, okay, you have to get top 3 at X Games so you can win enough money to live for the next year. So yeah, the sponsorship dollars at the time were not very sufficient in terms of covering all your overhead. It was more like, your utilities were paid and your insurance was paid, but you still had to figure out how to cover your rent kind of thing. So yeah, not a lot of money back then, but the X Games money for everyone was the salary for the year until very recently.
Okay, so I'm going to make up a number that could be totally wrong, but let's just say 20 grand is something that you were making back then.
That's probably about right. Yeah, I would say between 20 and 40 for the year would be a lot for a girl skater at that time.
And then let's think of a comparable guy skater at that time. Where would he be in terms of salary?
I can't say for sure, but I can guess that it'd be in the millions, or at least 100% 6-figure. That's a guess.
But that's just a insane difference between one X Games silver medalist making 25 grand and one making 540 grand.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely a big gap.
Yeah, and it's just you can't survive on that. So you guys fought for a lot of things, and money is one of the things that came through. And that makes an impact for all women from here on out. But I will say, in 2013, the one question mark that I have with the Alliance being involved in everything is it seemed like there was a real women's event. And you were part of it, but it wasn't just skateboarding. It was all sports. And that's strange.
Yeah, so they did a real women video contest through X Games. They had one street skater, one vert skater, and then they had a couple skiers, a couple snowboarders, I believe, if I remember correctly. So it was all action sports, which...
It's stupid, I think.
Yeah, I agree it was a little strange. At the time, it was their way to like say, you know, we're including women on this platform and kind of combining snow and summer. But Lindsay was signed up to do it. And that was after a few years gap where we really didn't have a lot of contests going on. And so I just started filming with this 16-year-old kid that I go and pick up and like, you know, take with me to the ramp or the park or whatever and tell him how to hold the camera. You know, stand here, buddy. Like that was my filmer. And now he's actually a really established, really good filmer, by the way. Yeah, so I just been collecting footage because I didn't want to just be doing nothing. And so I had all this footage and Lindsay ended up being pregnant and couldn't film the part. And so that's how I ended up in that. So yeah, that was 2013 Real Women. I think Leticia won, but yeah, it was like a voting process. That's how they chose the winner. So yeah, it was a little different.
So they screwed you all around with the voting process because that's a popularity contest. Who's got the biggest social media following, who's going to promote stuff, and then you can win.
Right.
And then they don't make it by the single sport. So it's like saying, hey, we're going to see who the best athlete is. We're going to take a dude from the NFL. We're going to take a dude from the NBA. We're going to take a dude from another sport, and we're going to make him play golf.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of how it went. Even like street skating and vert skating, it's like vert will never win. I mean, it is what it is, though. For me, like, it gave me the opportunity to like really try to put something together that I'd been working on. So I was actually fine with it. Like, I didn't expect to win anything anyway. I just was kind of like, cool, I have a place for this footage now. But yeah, it was interesting.
And then I'm going to fast forward now to Hoopla Skateboards.
Sure.
You start that with Cara Beth and George Powell. Is Powell backing it?
So Cara Beth had been getting boards from Powell for many years, just flow. Like, they would just send her whatever she needed. And so it kind of stemmed from that relationship. They kind of came to her and they're like, look, we don't really like see you on Powell or any of our brands, but if you would like to start your own brand, like, we're down to do that with you. And, you know, I was kind of more of an artistic background. And so she came to me and was like, hey, would you want to do this brand with me? And so that's kind of how it started. So we sat down, came out with names and everything. And then I came out with the logo and then, yeah, just sold it for a small fee to George Powell. And he kind of covered everything else. And it was an experience, to say the least.
What goes into starting a brand on your end? Because as much as you are a skateboarder, you are as talented as an artist. And we're not really going to talk about that much, but anybody can go to your website. What's your website address?
Just my name, actually, miminoop.com.
miminoop.com. You can check out a ton of her art, but are you the creative force behind the brand?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, I made all the graphics, really all the brand ever did, except for maybe a couple the Skate One art department did. But, you know, I would run everything by Cara Beth and the team, whoever was on the team at the time. I'd show them stuff and be like, do you guys like this? Like, what colors do you want? Like, it was very much like hands-on approach. And then, you know, at the same time, I was super green because I'd never done any of this before. So I had to kind of learn as I went how to be a brand manager and kind of step into that role. At the beginning, I just made the logo and the name with Cara Beth, and then I was a skater for a couple years. And we noticed that, you know, no one was really taking the bull by the horns at Skate One and running with this thing. So I went to George and I said, hey, you need to hire me as brand manager. Like, no one's running this. And he's like, okay, well, you need to move to Santa Barbara. And I'm like, no, I'm not moving to Santa Barbara. I'm living in San Diego. Like, hire me remotely. And he's like, no, I can't do that because I've never done that for a brand manager before. I kept asking him for about 4 months, and then he finally said yes. And yeah, George has provided me with a lot of opportunities. So I did that from maybe 2011 till just this year. I was, working satellite office style in San Diego, running Hoopla.
And how does that end? Because you just said that you're not doing that anymore. So what's the process there?
A lot of factors kind of went into the decision to kind of exit and shut down the brand. One being the landscape rapidly changed in the last year and a half or so. A lot of the main core popular skate brands started adding women onto their teams, and then women started getting pro models through those brands, and basically the market arrived for them, which is what we've wanted this whole time. It's why we started Hoopla in 2007, 2008, because there was nothing there at the time. There was no support there. So it's kind of bittersweet in a way, because now there's support where there wasn't, but then it also led to the demise of our business model, because, it was a small brand all the way to the end. We didn't make millions of dollars off of it. And, it's a business. So we could not match what some of these girls were getting through these bigger brands. It kind of felt like the right time to close the book and say it's the end of the chapter. And I feel like it's, going to allow the space for maybe something new to happen down the line.
Well, it definitely paved the way. And like you said, now that teams are bringing on women onto their programs, that's a turn for the better right there. Because once you see that full integration and full acceptance and no biases whatsoever from the brands, I won't say you've won, because it's going to be a battle forever, because I just think it will be. But you've helped put things in the right direction in skateboarding.
I hope so, yeah. It's amazing to see someone like Samaria with a couple different graphics on Enjoy now. They're realizing the value that the girls have, and they do have unique value. It's a different market, and they have people that, are huge fans, and it's growing so big every day. And that's awesome to see. That's what we wanted from the beginning. So,
well, you made it happen. And the one thing I have to talk about before I get into my final section, which is Inappropriate Questions, which you might not like, is the Do Tour, because the Do Tour is right around the corner.
It's coming up on June 28th to July 1st in Long Beach.
And it's partnered with the Agenda trade show now, so it's going to create a lot more industry folk there, and people are going to be able to check out Agenda when it's open on the Saturday, I believe.
Yep.
But what is your role with Do?
So a few years back, I created my own consulting management company, and I have a few partners called Women's Skateboarding Alliance. And it's kind of the next stage of the work that we began years ago with X Games. And we basically we help run events. We make sure things are fair and legitimate for the skaters. We make sure the best in the world are there, because currently there's not really a way to rank the best girls just from contests alone. So we kind of go through with a fine-tooth comb, and we have a selection committee that's worldwide from all over, basically, like Brazil, Australia, Japan, Europe. And we kind of tap into those networks and make sure the best of the best are being represented at events like Do Tour. So yeah, we're really excited to partner with them, and we're excited there's going to be Women's Street and Women's Park there. So it's not just one discipline, be able to show the whole spectrum of talent, and hopefully have a great contest for the skaters.
That is late June, so everybody can tune into that, or if you're in California and San Diego, check that out. But at this point in the show, we're going to go into Inappropriate Questions, and sometimes I have people ask questions that I didn't do that this time, because I have 3 questions that I want to get from you. And the first one is going to be a layup.
Okay.
Everyone has a story where they've done something dumb when they're drunk that they regret. And it might not be that fun to talk about, or sometimes it's really funny to talk about. But I want to know the story of a night where you went really, really big, and you woke up just super embarrassed about something you said or something you did, and you thought about it for a couple days.
Oh, man, there's so many to choose from.
I love that.
I'll give you a Radford story, since we both went there.
Yep.
I remember one time there was a coffee shop there called Mocha Joe's that they turned into a bar.
Yep.
And I graduated at 21, so I was a lot younger than my friends, and they all turned 21 before me. So I had to get a fake ID, because I'm like, I'm not going to sit at home while everyone goes to the bars. And so anyway, I don't know. I had some ridiculous fake ID that said I was, had curly blonde hair and just didn't look anything like me, like 28-year-old woman. And I was 21 and had a baby face and basically got busted and they took it away. And then one of my friends at the time was like, hey, I think we can get up on the second floor, get through the bathroom window. So he boosted me up and I snuck in through the window and like got kicked out again and just made a total scene. So yeah, that was kind of a bad one, but it was fun.
Nice. All right, I'm going to go with question number 2. I've been on tours before, and I know all kinds of crazy antics happen on the road, from gross stuff to illegal stuff to whatever. Nothing's really off limits. And it's usually, in your world, it's probably 6 people in a vehicle covered in scabs.
Yep.
What I have never been on is an all-girls tour. While I can imagine some things on an all-girls tour would be a little different, I'm sure a lot of the stuff are the same, although we might not think about that. But what are the grossest and funniest things you've seen with an all-girls crew?
Oh, man. Well, I can give you a funny one. We did a tour up in SF a few years back with the Hoopla crew, and we went to skate Thrasher, Double Rock, to film a piece with them.
Mm-hmm.
And we pull up, and we've got this van full of girls, and we pull up, and there's just boxes of tampons everywhere. Everyone was on their period, and there's just tampons everywhere. And we're outside Double Rock, and we're like, okay, this is not normal for Double Rock. So we all were, we thought it was funny that, we had a bunch of tampons in the window and didn't realize it.
In the window?
Well, just on the shelf, you could see them through the window on the shelf.
Oh, okay.
Not hanging or anything.
Yeah, I was like, well, you decorated it with tampons. Well, I mean, that's interesting. But no, they were just sitting there. So I would say that's funny. Anything really gross?
I don't think so. Everybody's pretty clean.
Okay.
Everybody's pretty clean. We like showers, so...
So that's the main difference between the guys' tour and the girls' tour?
Probably, at least in my experience. Everyone packs too many clothes. The bags are big, and at least for most of us, we bring too much stuff. So that's my experience, but I'm sure not everyone's like that.
Okay. And now I'm going to go to my final inappropriate question, one that I don't even really want to ask, but I will. So we're at a crazy time in the world. We all know men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We're all inherently different. And not all men are created equal. I mean, some men have something inside them that makes them complete and utter pigs and think they can do whatever they want to women. They can grab them wherever they want. And that's not acceptable nor right. But you haven't heard much about it from the women. It's all kind of been shoved under the table. And thank God people are coming out and saying things, because it's going to change the way our kids grow up and treat and respect women. But have you ever been in a Me Too situation in the skateboard world?
Not in skateboarding. I've really had pretty positive experiences. The only thing I can think of was, and it's not even a Me Too moment, it was more just disrespectful, was I was doing a street contest back in Virginia Beach in the 90s, just with my friends, little parking lot jam style thing where a guy's on the mic and I was the only girl there, and he comes on the mic and he's like, get this bitch off the course, basically referring to me as a bitch because I was out there skating. But that's really one of the only negative experiences I've had. Definitely probably been around more inappropriate things in college than skateboarding, really.
That's good for the skateboard world.
Yeah, I mean, the guys have always been pretty respectful to me, at least. And the girls I'm with, I've never really experienced that.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Skaters are good, mostly.
Yeah, in that respect. While there might be some damage to property and other things, they have respect for people and peers.
Definitely. There's definitely a respect level there.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. You have blazed a trail. You, Cara Beth, Jen, a lot of people have blazed a trail to make skateboarding better for women. And a lot of times when people blaze a trail, you don't see the outcome right away. But you guys are able to make some things happen quickly, and things are still progressing and getting better and better, but it's a tribute to all the hard work you've put in. So I thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem. And I will look forward to seeing you either at Do Tour or somewhere sometime.
That sounds awesome.
Anytime I hear your name, I get the song Shoop stuck in my head. I don't know if that happens to you.
Oh my God.
So that was time with Mimi Knoop. And it's crazy that her skateboarding career didn't really start to develop until she was 23 years old. Once it did develop, she did everything she could to advocate for change in the world of women's skateboarding. And at the end of the day, she's won a lot of battles, but the war is not over. It'll be interesting to see the impact that she continues to make on women's skateboarding in the years to come. Next week on the show, it's an absolute legend of skateboarding. A guy who skated faster and more reckless than almost anyone. I'm talking about John Cardiel. Yes, John fucking Cardiel. And the podcast is amazing. That's next week. Until then, please give me a 5-star rating on whatever platform you listen to me on. If you're on an iPhone, it takes a minute, and here's what you need to do. Go to podcasts on your iPhone or in iTunes, search for The Powell Movement, scroll down to where you see the stars, hit 5 stars, and you're done. If you want to review me as well, that's great, but the 5 stars are enough. Thank you very much for rating me, and thank you for listening. I also want to thank my sponsors for making this show possible. They are Evo, Rescue Water, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.